So for today, what I wanted to hear was just different skill sets that you guys are looking for, what we can do to start to design the curriculum with the employers. In the past, in education, we do this all the time. We just are in our little silos, and we think we know what we want. We read the reports, and then we design curriculum, which is not a great way to do things. So I said, wow, why don't we talk to the employers before we design the curriculum? Wouldn't that be great? So that's what we're here today. Thank you guys for being here to kind of give us some input. And then we're hoping that if some of the employers want to participate in the interview process, if you guys want to be part of the classroom training, we would love to have you there. And it's really important for us to have you guys connected with the participants right at the beginning so that they see that there's this kind of investment from the community in them. Which is really what we found to be the most valuable part of the program. So that's what I'm just going to open it up. And on the board there, I just have one of our employers, Santa Fe Filmworks, contacted me this morning. He couldn't be here. It was Doug Crawford, and he said that transcription services are on the rise. A lot of the media that we shoot, especially like Kimberly can attest to this probably, has to be transcribed. And it's a huge job, requires good reading and writing skills. And Wordswork is a company here in Santa Fe that's interested in starting to work with us to see some employees come their way. So yeah, so I just wanted to kind of open it up to you guys and see what are some of the skill sets that you guys are looking for or not seeing or want to see, or questions about the PROTEC program.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
So for this particular semester, it's not restricted to one program or project like last time when it was historic or location-based.
Yeah,
and that's why we're all sitting here.
Yes.
Okay, just double checking.
Yeah, no, it's open. There hasn't been a demand put on us by any. And I kind of Chris Heyer, who is he a manager? What is he?
He's the economic development director for the county.
Okay, so Chris is my contact with the county, and the funding has come through economic development, and he said IT skills are always a focus that we want to have within this program, and the leadership and customer service. But he said otherwise than that, we really need to talk to the employers, and so that's what we're doing. Is sort of let's design it to what really is needed. And I've been in many meetings with like the Chamber of Commerce, but again, there's only a small portion of folks that attend that as well. So, and I know Kimberly reached out to me with a huge project that she's working on that needed some skill sets. And do you want to talk about that project?
Yeah, we can talk about that certainly. We're embarking on a project to explain Real ID to New Mexicans, and one of the ways that we'd like to do that is through media, through video. So we contacted Monique about working with SFCC to produce some video content to explain Real ID, and social media skills will be great because we need to not just publish a video up on YouTube, but how do we let people know? How do we spread the word? How can they share this, right, on Facebook or Twitter or, I don't know, I guess they're blogs or whatever. I'm starting to get into an area that I don't know much about at this point. And maybe Alicia would like to say a little more about that.
It is a big project, and it's something that people, I think, are getting used to. We've had it rolled out for a little more than a year now, but we have a large number of people that are going to be impacted. I think we're talking about probably a little more than 1 million people over the next year and a half, something like that, that need to come in and update their credential. And it's really hard to hit certain areas of our population, in particular people of a certain age. I'm amazed at how many people use a name other than what's on their birth certificate. And so the requirements for Real ID are actually quite simple for people like me who never changed their names, got married and divorced and remarried and never changed their name, that everything just matches. But it's really hard for people who have been using their baptismal name, or they just started being called Punky when they were 10 and it stuck, right? And now they're 25 and they need to figure out how to be Jennifer again or whatever their name is. And so the requirements are simple, but the complexities for people, they're simple for about 80% of the population, 20% of the population it's not simple. And the situations that people find themselves in are not are not standard enough to be able to hit that. So it's really hard to get the word out to everybody, and it involves the courts, it involves other state agencies, it involves tribal nations, senior populations. So we're just trying to figure out how to get the word out to folks. And it's been out there for a while, and we're hitting some real timelines that we want to make sure that folks have enough information. So, you know, Kimberly's great, and she has a lot of skill sets and a lot of things that she can bring to us, but she's one person, and this is just one huge project among 15 huge projects. And so the resources that we have are very limited, and we're very excited about the opportunity of helping folks develop the skills that they need to be successful beyond this program, while at the same time being able to benefit from that. So the couple of questions that I have for you, just about basic program, how it functions. So how many participants do you anticipate having?
So right now we have the funding to host 20
Okay,
participants, and that is to ensure the stipend.
and that ensures the stipend. So you're not looking for a monetary contribution
No.
from employers? at
No,
this point?
so, yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you were to I know that, you know, Kimberly even said you guys are in hiring freeze. So one of the things is we always work with employers to say, like with SARE might have some funds for on-the-job training. If it's a job in demand, there's other things through DWS that is available to get new employees. So we really want employers to think about, if this person's really valuable, like Chris has, is to create that job for them.
Sure, well, we're making an investment like anybody
Yeah,
else, and
yeah.
if you can transition somebody, I think your example is a perfect example. You
Well,
can
the other thing
transition
that
somebody.
happened is, they paid half the salary for the first 100 hours.
Got it.
So I put half the money in, they put half the money in. So I have a perfect opportunity to test somebody
Right.
and then see what their skills are. And if it's what we needed, which it was, then I'm happy then to pay
That-
the full salary. But that was a nice opportunity to have someone come and on the job. So
Right.
you can really see them in real life.
Right, well, that's ideal.
Yeah.
That's, you know, for an employer, that's really, so
Yeah.
I would think, given the scope of this project, Kimberly's probably better able to talk about the kind of skill set that we're looking for and the kinds of things that she would need for that kind of project. And we have a lot of things going on, not just Real ID, because we have some real kind of timelines that we need to hit that may or may not match with this draft outline. But we can definitely put this to use in other ways.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of possibilities and potentials.
Great, great.
Yeah, we have a huge software system. It was probably one of the largest software system projects, I think, in the state that our agents use to process, all our transactions. And so we've been tasked with training our employees and partners on Tapestry, and this is where we get beyond just film. We're doing some video explanation. We're teaching people how to fill out documents by doing overhead shoots and having a subject matter expert say, this is how you fill this out. And I think that's going to be extremely helpful. We also have a learning management system. We have state-of-the-art instructional design authoring software. Somebody with great communication skills, somebody who's interested in explanation. Certainly customer service plays a role because I have internal and external customers. We have help desk support that needs to happen. So learning, I'm in the heart of education here, right? But we're really teaching employees how to use the tools that they need, and we're also teaching some soft skills online as well, which is where video comes in really handy. And we're developing the skill set in-house right now. I have 2 clerks at MVD who are well on their way to becoming instructional designers because we've been working together for the last few months, and I love to take people like this and develop them and empower them, especially when they're so hungry for a new, really marketable skill set that can just make their life better and the lives of their families.
Really, seriously, do you have any job openings now?
Right? We're doing a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah. I know, I think when I mentioned that, I had spoke with Kimberly and that they were interested in PROTEC, when I mentioned MVD, or MVD, what are they doing with, media? I said, well, a lot, actually.
When people think of MVD, they would never, I know when I started to work at MVD, I had no clue what I was getting into. It's been 14 years and I'm still learning, because we're doing so many things, and we have a social conscience. We do a lot of stuff for the community, which is really cool. We don't do a very good job of getting it out there to people. So even that would be a phenomenal project.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that we've been able to do too is with different projects, we're able to partner, the community college is able to partner on going after those grants and embedding PROTEC as that kind of educational partnership. And that makes you a little bit more desirable to some of the grants. So it's kind of a good thing. So, and I think we talked about that some time ago, yeah.
And on a completely separate note, I'd love to talk with you after this about a totally different project
Okay.
that might have a resource for you guys.
Okay, super, excellent. Okay, so any other, yeah.
Well, we're looking for students with skill sets that may pertain to other employers here. And so many students work at different job sites. May they work at multiple job sites.
So we've had some students do that. Some students want to do multiple job sites to try stuff, but a lot of times the employer wants that 100 hours. They want that person there for 100 hours. So
Yeah,
it just
we
depends.
would.
Yeah, yes. So, and one of the things like with the contract that we're doing with the city, we've basically allocated 5 PROTEC students to that particular contract. And for research, videos, some simple video stuff, but social media as well. So that's sort of how, when we're going after these grants and contracts, we'll embed 5 PROTECers, right, into that contract. So usually that the employer wants that full 100 hours, but we've had some students that like to, and Sam was one of them. So Sam wanted to, and she ended up doing above and beyond. I think she ended up doing across the board, I think over 500 hours, but she only got paid for the 100. And so I think that was when we reached out to you guys. She had already expended those 100 hours. So she was just very eager and hungry, like Kimberly was talking about, to go out. So you might end up with folks too who just want to volunteer to get an experience as well. So
I just want to expand on
Yeah.
the piece that you mentioned about research, and you and I talked about this, and all the other points that folks have already brought up about customer service, timeliness, being able to interact in an appropriate way with either an internal or external customer. But the research itself, beyond what they would typically do, perhaps just through an internet search, get back in the library somewhere, and how do you go about that, and then properly citing things and making sure that everything is documented properly, so that when we put something together, there's really no question about the veracity of it or its source. That particular skill set with regard to research itself is something that I think we'll certainly want to have, along with the video, the social media skills as well, and even in social media as well, the documentation of who, what, when, where, why that stuff happens, so that you can you have a trail of what we did, and then also be able to develop a plan for what we want to do.
Again, our plan is to, for some of our projects, is to manifest them as enhanced and ebooks. And we're finding that ebook production incorporates many of the skills that we're all talking about. But before we can do that, we need students with project trailer experience. We need to make a trailer to promote our ebook project, so we can raise the funds to do this and to transition some of our interns to be full-time employees.
I can enhance that a little.
Yeah.
Basically, we're publishers, but that, as you all know, that means more than it used to. to us, publishing is print, video, multimedia, all things. And as Jane was saying, there's this emerging field called enhanced ebooks, which is all of the above. Basically, it's about hyperlinking, multimedia hyperlinking. So you're reading something on a screen maybe, and everything is a hot link, and it takes you to a movie of that thing, or a Google map, or street views of this thing. So, these days, and by the way, I taught film for 40 years, not production, but history and theory. And my interest was the non-commercial, so, documentaries. By non-commercial, I mean not made especially for money, we'd be happy to get it, but, and experimental works and so on. What was that? So, we're retired now, and Jane has joined me recently in my projects, which are, there's about 6 of them. It's insanely ambitious for 2 old folks, and which are publishing projects on certain lifelong interests of mine. One is film, so we've got a film art. So we've got a project going on, a certain filmmaker, a non-commercial guy who's very well known in sort of the film art world. So we've got a big project going on him, and I mean big, more than 1,000 pages, which we realize cannot be a physical book. It has to be electronic in some way. And that involves just about every skill you can think of these days. And I want to make this point about, I don't know, maybe students know this, but let's say you want to be a video maker. Well, the recognized ways to do that aren't the only ones anymore. They should also be considering publishing as a possible, that's distribution of a certain kind, right? And it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as a publishing world. I mean, the whole world is being transformed. And so we think that's one of the things we have to offer, is putting together this really sophisticated, big, enhanced ebook project that's going to have a lot of movies that need to be made, and visualizations, meaning computer-generated visualizations and animations. So, just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, great. Eric, do you want to add anything from your background with it?
I think things that we covered, I think there's similarities between what we're going to be looking for and what other people are looking for with the research and the basic computer skills.
Do you want to talk a little bit about metadata? Just sort of that whole
Sure, go by
field?
background.
Yeah. Because I find this is sort of a skill set that I'm seeing. It's not, New Mexico isn't huge yet, but he'll talk about it, you can see where it'll apply. I think all of us are going to be using this sort of skill set, especially with e-publishing, right? So.
My background, I think, ties in with what Jean and Jane are doing, in that what I've done is work with large amounts of information and reorganizing that so that things are findable within the large amounts of information, which probably applies to places like the DMV, etc. And metadata is just one of the ways of doing metadata taxonomy. And I think those are things that could be taught in the classroom, and then especially in a situation where the students then move on to work projects.
So Eric, may I please have you explain what metadata is and how one uses it in the world?
Sure. So data, I think everybody knows what data means, and metadata just means data that's on top of the original data that explains what the original data is. So say you have a document that somebody's put together in an office, you'd also attach pieces of data to that say are topical, subject related, area related.
And is that then for sorting and for organizing somehow?
Yeah, sorting, organizing, searching. Say if you have an internal,
Managing.
Yeah.
So like every time, and I don't even know if you noticed this, but every time you create a document, right, here at the college, right, you're an author. You become an author. And then when you start to organize, you can see the history of a document from the authors that have been part of it. So I can go back in the database that I have, and I can see like a syllabi from a class that was taught by Bruno 10 years ago I have access to that, but now it's changed, and I can see the progression of that change, right? And if I need to go back to find the historical part of that, I have access through that search.
Yeah, and we've all used metadata when we've searched in the library catalog, if we're doing a keyword search or a topic search or genre search.
Jane is a former head librarian, so
Oh, yeah.
Eric and her are like super.
Absolutely.
And we've got a massive database too. You know, it's hard for me to project outside of my little world of movies to the real world where these same skills could be used. But if that is a skill, managing metadata and big databases, we got one for you. Big one. Thousands of elements.
Basic organizational skills is
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that we see, and it is applied now in very different ways because of all of the ways that we can store data and that we can collect data. But all of the training that Kimberly was just talking about, one of the biggest challenges that we've had for as long as I've been at MVD, which is almost 15 years now, is our laws change so often, or the interpretation of the law changes so often. So you develop a procedures manual or a standard operating procedure, and it's constantly changing. They're no longer a document that you can put at the side of your desk and reference. It's a live document that's constantly moving, especially with, in our world anyway, all of the changes in the federal and state law, and how we adapt to those. So in the past, we would burn these CDs, send them out, and then next week we had to make the change and then burn more CDs and send them out, and that's not the world we live in anymore. But the struggle to stay on top of that and all of those changes that are sometimes happening from day to day because we're responding to the need of our customers is really big. And I think another skill set that we all have but never really think about it in practical terms is systems thinking, and how what you do here is impacting so many other things. I mean, we all do it in the shower every day. We don't make it super hot till we're scalding and then make it super cold till we're free. I mean, we work until we find and when we're driving, we don't veer right, left, fast. I mean, we're using it all the time in very practical ways, but I find that people struggle to figure out how to adapt that to their work situation. And as much as possible, one of the things that we find with a lot of our employees, especially of a certain age, well, actually across all the ages, people are just interesting, and I'm using that as a polite word. Sometimes the interpersonal interactions with people who are in a closed environment for so many hours a day, doing repetitive work, is a tough thing. So the more that we can get people who are adaptable to that kind of a work environment, the easier it is for everybody across the board, not just the manager or the supervisor who has to figure out how to navigate 10 people, but for the person that has to sit there for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, that's a very important soft skill.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is, and not just be involved in the gossip in each other's day-to-day drama. That's a huge thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It this is a little tangential, but builds off that. When I lived in San Diego, our entire city adopted a project called Work Your Wow. We had little business cards, I still have it at home, but where they literally taught every single person, cab drivers, the guy at the door of the hotel, the taco stand, you name it, to be gracious and actually enjoy the day and let that share that with others. So that managing your attitude, even if you're stuck, or how do you deal when you're exhausted and you've been stuck in the same space all day, and what can you do for yourself? What can you do for others? Can you touch their humanity? All those kinds of things. So maybe just that would be helpful to talk about attitude, and it seems so simple and straightforward, but it's one of those crazy things that colors everything.
And it was just by happenstance. It's because when we train for the film industry, I mean, it's all about that, right? Because you're standing on it's a 16-hour day. You're on your feet. It's hurry up and wait all the time. People treat you like dirt. So it's sort of saying, what is the leadership that you can bring to the situation? So that's how we're addressing it, is through sort of that formal educational piece called leadership.
Right.
But I think
yourself when times are tough, that can take on a lot of different meanings.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And the other one on that, I'll steal from my husband, who he says, and he had a son who was born handicapped, so he went through incredible challenge. But he's like, it's not bad till it's bad. So reacting to situations without overreacting or collaborating a customer or a coworker, etc. So little things like that. Dealing with conflict, mediating a communication, how do you get to the outcome that's good for everybody?
Yeah.
Which Navajo Way, because I lived in Navajo Nation, also was like, no matter what, you come back to Beauty Way. Like you come back to, everybody comes to a compromise. So I don't know the translation of that, but those are,
Yeah,
I think you're onto important, simple things that you think we wouldn't be teaching
Yeah,
in school, but here
Yeah.
we are.
yeah.
Anyway, I was going to add a few on TechWorks too, if you want to do that.
Sure,
Or
or
you wanna
Jane,
go
did you have
first?
something, Jane, did you have
Well,
something?
I just wanted to ask, as employers, work keys, we know that, you know, the Department of Work Solutions and all that, they use work keys, they have developed, we've seen through the grant with Kristen, we've seen the benefits that it brings for the student, you know, as they go work with those. But we've also encountered where there's employees that are not using work keys. They're not interested in using work keys. It is, you know, it's we're teaching them skills, but they're not looking at that. So my question as employers is, would you consider actually to use work keys as part of the hiring process of giving these people the opportunity to prove their skills in a different way than a certificate, a piece of paper, a certificate, or so they can work through that. Because we're looking at people that are reskilling, or they're just skilling, and it's hard because they're willing and they want to get into work, and prove that they can do it, but they don't have 2, 3 years, 4 years to go through, all this education. And this is what PROTEC is about. But what I'm interested is in the work keys. I mean, are we willing to incorporate that? I know that there is a lot of states actually that institutions have said we use work keys. That's our base for it, and then we'll build on
Are you
that.
familiar with work keys? I think probably it's a great
know.
question.
Are you familiar?
No, I'm not. It sounds like it's a template for evaluating, assessing their knowledge and skills
Yes.
that they've acquired.
So work keys, it's actually a series of let's say sessions.
It's an assessment.
It's an assessment of what they know now and how to improve their skills. As they work through the modules, for example, then they continue to attain those skills, and they prove through this process that they have it.
And it's focused on workforce readiness skills.
Yeah.
And it's a national assessment, and it's the ACT that administers the college readiness assessment. It's administered by the same company, but it's really focused on workforce readiness skills. And across the nation, I'm glad Carla brought it up, across the nation it is considered a workforce readiness assessment that is validated by employer partners. So, and not all employers in New Mexico, in fact a lot of employers don't, like the city of Albuquerque, for example, is using it as an assessment and a credential that demonstrates their workforce readiness skills. And it is around reading and writing and mathematics, the basic skills that are needed to succeed in workforce. So.
Glenda, do you want to talk about, the San Juan is a work keys city, right? A work keys site, San Juan? San Juan Community College, but I'm thinking Farmington area.
Oh,
Is it
Farmington.
Farmington considered a work keys
Right.
community?
Yes.
Do you want to just share how that's going, or do you know?
I really don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't,
Yeah, I just know that Jeff had mentioned that they've adopted it across the board,
Mhm.
and there was some interesting statistics that had come out of that.
Oh,
So
okay.
maybe I can ask him about
Yeah,
that.
it's more
get them.
specific to what Jeff does.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Just on the topic of work keys, to throw into the mix
Yeah.
real quick, I, as an employer, I don't actually know what it is because I never did it, but I would personally be willing to do a module or two, where it might be cool to have a group of us come together for a lunch thing or an afternoon or a work day and do it ourselves, or even mix us with students and do whether it's a job fair that's coming in the spring or whatever, like where can we as employers or submit somebody from our group to do it and actually live through the process.
You can do it at any time while you're
Yeah.
sitting at home. Instead of flipping through Facebook, you can get on Work Keys and see what your
Just in case you
skills
want
are.
to take an assessment.
Yeah.
Right, it's like, it'd be cool as a group to
No,
like
yeah,
invite our
sure.
community members, because
I
we're.
did some of them. You can get them
Yeah.
online too,
Yeah.
just some sample questions.
Okay,
And I was surprised because I never really studied math very formally, but you know through life one learns about. So they had you like figure out this how much carpet you would need for a room that was shaped this size, or you know all of a sudden I remembered pi, and you know 'cause I had to do the radius of a circle and whatever. So it was interesting though to see what it is, how complicated actually. I mean the questions move up
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
smartly so that you know.
And
And then-
anybody can do
And the
it.
test is Career 101, is that when you sign up with DWS, there's like a practice test, right, called Career 101, so that they can
So I
practice.
think this course score also, still haven't taken it, I have the link to do it, but I think that's another one that would be interesting just so we understand.
Core scores.
It's this new thing that
innovate, educate.
Innovate Educate has put together that is supposed to analyze your soft skills readiness.
And to add to the mix, Tech Hire created their own tech upskilling platform. They're demoing it on December 7th in an online Zoom meeting. If anyone wants to jump in, I'll send the link to you.
Yeah.
And you
I
can
send
pass it out.
Sure.
We're curious because we were designated as a Tech Hire city, whether our city can benefit from this or not. It's not like we have to adopt it, but it's tech skills assessment
Oh, wow.
and soft skills, and you can even create a mini interview, and in their system they even allow professionals to give you feedback on your digital interview, and you create like your own online portfolio. I don't know much more than that, but anyway, to add to the complications of things,
No, well-
there's that percolating over here too.
And again, the spirit of PROTEC has been that the work keys, they have to take the work keys to be able to be a participant. So they have to take it
I've
before
done
they,
Work Keys, and it's actually kind of fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to take it.
I
I
know.
would just fail miserably. And,
I
you
know, me
I'm not
too.
gonna say I did well, but I did do it.
Well, it's good to, yeah.
I know, it is. I probably should.
Yeah.
I'll set
But-
that as an annual.
Yeah.
But
Well,
one of
fun.
the, it's sometimes surprising, the scores are sometimes
Yeah, and
surprising.
then you can
So-
focus on what you need to know that you don't
Yes.
know. Yeah.
I have a question that maybe we're all wondering about. In the classroom training, in February, could you tell us more about the curriculum
Sure.
planning?
So this is the first step to developing this curriculum that we're talking about. So there's sort of this curriculum that has evolved from the last two pilots, which has kind of, I call it sort of three areas. So there's the sort of leadership, personal awareness, and then there's the applied sort of IT, more IT, and then there's sort of the social media video. So those are the three sort of areas that have grown from, and it's, and again, when we did the IT one the first time, we didn't expect the social media to be really that robust, but it suddenly became a huge part of what people wanted, what they desired. And then when they got into the workplace, it ended up being that kind of added value for that employer, having that. So in Santa Fe, there's not really social media specialist jobs available where that's all they do all day. It's usually they're doing like what Paloma's doing.
Right for it though.
Yeah, there is.
15
There's
other
a-
things plus.
yeah, they're receptionists, they're updating websites, but they're also doing all of the social media as well. So it's sort of, I call it the new super secretary, that's out there. We're not supposed to use the word secretary, but then, it's that kind of thing.
I'm sorry,
Administrators.
what was the second?
So the second is sort of that IT
What
skill
was the
sets.
third one?
So the third thing is social media video. And then,
Oh.
the first thing is more
Okay.
that customer service, personal awareness, leadership, soft skills embedded, yeah.
And when we're talking IT, it's more the help desk part?
It's
or
really
it's not?
minimal office software. So
Okay.
one of the things that has evolved is we have access to Office 365 as an educational institution. And so I'm working with our IT department because this is considered like a continuing education type program. Normally, continuing education students would not have access to the free version of 365, but within that, each student at SFCC gets access to OneDrive, they get access to Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. So the idea is that if there's an introduction to those skill sets with the idea that there is a pathway to certification, certification is probably not going to happen in that 30 hours, but what we say is there is a pathway at SFCC to do that. There's a pathway to get those skill sets to then do certification. And that's probably going to be that pathway through CE instead of on the academic side, even though, like, Carla, you teach in the academic side. But what we found was that with our current Office software programs, they're not teaching to the certification, and the employer wants to see the certification. Yeah. So we worked with Certiport. That was the people who were doing the certifications for us. And so these assessment tools that you guys are talking about are embedded throughout the program. So the work keys is, before you even get into the program, you have to take the work keys and you have to score at least bronze. And we're going to embed ScoreCore in sort of that professional awareness piece where the soft skills lie. And then there is talk of using work keys on the end as a final assessment to see if that 30 hours has improved that score. And so then we can see that kind of data for place forward. And data is huge for the county, right? I mean, a county wants those reports, the work board wants those reports. And again, we're in this contract-based skill set area, which is, it doesn't fit DWS's plan, right? That's what we found, right? But DWS ended up hiring 3 or 4 of our PROTECers. Yeah, so, yeah.
And other things to put on your list, just
Yes.
simple ones that seem also kind of just obvious, but can you do a Google document that's being shared by multiple people and co-worked on? That seems like a basic, but it's really shocking.
Yeah.
Scheduling.
Excel document, data, managing data, moving
Yeah.
data, sorting data, simple things.
Data management.
Also, in our case, website, we use templates. We don't code our own
Yeah.
because we don't know what we're doing anyway. So I use Weebly, sometimes Wix, social media, blogging,
Yeah.
those kinds of things are all stuff that, in our case too, we just figured it out ourselves. Nobody went to school, nobody knows what they're doing, and it's all self-taught and self-moving along. So having training in it or having someone show up on the door that's actually studying it is hugely exciting.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was gonna just add, for actual work, rolling people in, there's so many things going on. Not knowing what their skill set is to begin with is problem number 1. But I mean, I'm sort of poised to see, and then could direct student or PROTECer based on what their
So the
aptitude is.
the work keys are actually essential to that. So
Okay.
we've had folks who take that work keys, they come in, and like I had this gentleman who was working at Lowe's. He was doing carpentry on the side. He scored he scored the highest score possible in work keys. I said to him, I said, your skill sets match computer programming. So we put him in programming 1. He did great. He's now in programming 2, and he's starting to do coding. And again, it's getting him out of a customer service job at Lowe's, right? And he's older. He doesn't want to be doing lumber, hauling lumber around for the rest of his life. So, but he had no idea that would even be something he would enjoy.
Right.
But when I look at that work keys, I can match those skill sets to a job.
Nice.
Right? So that's, I think, what you're talking about too, is
Right.
that work keys is essential when they come in for us to understand where they're at.
Right.
And Sam was one of those too. She scored higher than she would have thought. She came through Santa Fe Mountain Center, so she had a support system there, but she wasn't looking at formal education as a possibility in her life at all.
Right.
But when she started working with you guys, she's like, and she started working with Doug Crawford, she's like, oh, these people have degrees. I can get a degree. I can do this, So that became, and again, I think if she took those work keys again, she'd probably even score higher.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not to take up people's time lauding your praises, but every time I walk in this building for a meeting, it makes me cry. I'm a teacher at heart, so I'm like, the walls are lined with amazing things happening that you see, like there's incredible stuff going on here. You guys are a secret treasure. Seriously, like the arts, the media, the fashion that's in the hallway, like it's incredible and people don't even know. So number 1, just thanks. It's fun to come here and to see what's going on and to be part of it. 2, I'm willing to show up and be in a classroom. I'm all into real life learning. So if being a person out in the world coming in,
We'll bring you in, Jennifer. If you're
sign
willing,
me up.
We love
I'm
volunteers.
willing. Number 3, as far as our situation, we have so many projects going at once. It's kind of overwhelming. But what I would say, just so you know, like we have an online video bank. I'm dying to have some young folks continue the process of building out New Mexico career profiles, particularly in tech or media,
Okay.
where they would be taught how to introduce themselves, interview, film it, edit it, post it, write a thank you, do a story, create also the online content written that goes with it.
Great.
So that storytelling on all levels, digital storytelling, whether it's ebooks, video, audio, whatever, podcasting even, we can weave in any of that and need all of it. The other piece of the puzzle, we have promotional things. As a city that we're trying to create a coalition and get the word out, like Summer of Tech. And any insights from a younger generation, for example, on what works to tell people in our own community, because it's kind of funky. Like, I don't know where to go to find out what's happening, or there's multiple sites, but is there insights or ways that we could be creative, or we can create and test some campaigns, whether it's making PSAs or texting things, I don't know. And the third is we also have an event on the horizon next fall, which we would potentially roll a PROTECer into, to launch the first New Mexico App Awards and App Showcase, highlighting apps made by or for New Mexicans and launching an app that we're building for our own community in film, by the way, FYI. So those are things where it's events, dealing with people, getting the word out, especially in multiple channels. And packaging the same stuff for different channels might be critical.
Yeah.
So that's a lot, sorry.
No,
But
it's good, yeah. That's what we're here for.
By the way, hi Jennifer, I haven't seen
I
you in a long time, like a decade. It's good to see
I was
you.
like all excited.
One other thing I'd like to add is email etiquette.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When to CC or BCC,
Yes.
how to remove people
Yeah.
when you don't want them
Check
to be part of the
spelling.
conversation anymore.
Check spelling. Yeah.
Spelling.
Yeah.
Well, in general, also don't send emotional emails.
Right.
Yeah, I think maybe we've all had to learn that hard lesson at some point in our career.
Listen, Google has a test now. I think it's for when you're drinking now. You can actually set up something where it'll tell you whether or not, right?
You're drunk. It's not productive.
Don't go on Facebook.
Are you sure? So, but yeah, no, that's essential.
Yeah, have a password.
Yes, yeah. Make sure you're
Dark
Remember it? That's where the eye sensor comes in on your phone.
Yeah.
We need a little Jiminy Cricket, like, click, click. Do I send this? Do I not?
I'd like to bring up the concept of fundraising in a very general way.
Okay.
Being in the nonprofit world, fundraising to us means grants. And, but it seems to me this new world that's emerging of infinite essentially possibilities of production, of multimedia productions of any kind, fundraising could be understood in a larger context, maybe even venture capital, I have no idea.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship. In our case, this big project that we were talking about, this publishing project, we have connections with the George Lucas Family Foundation and the Francis Coppola Foundation. And we're going to be, one of the things we need help on is putting together presentations to them.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that even though this is, in our case, non-commercial, the skills to do it can be commercial, to someone who was helping us do it, learn how to do this.
Yeah.
So that's just one.
Yeah.
That's part of the office training, right? Or does it not?
You mean Office 365
Yeah.
or? Well, I think, we definitely, like with the film one, it was more encompassing. Like we looked at the career pathway, right? So we look at the career pathway in these areas and saying, look at all of the skill sets that you are already bringing and look at all the skill sets that you can gain, right? And then how do you package yourself to go in a direction? And I think everybody's mentioned here, it's not one direction. It's going to change in your lifetime many times, how your path moves and how do those skills just stack on each other. So we haven't done, specifically like how do you start a Kickstarter, but we have, and I don't think we could do that just in the 30 hours to encompass everything, but we could say, here's the class and here's where you go, here's the network to go get that training, right? So we know people in the community like Anna Dara, who's doing all of this stuff, and we could bring her in and we could offer that training, here through continuing ed. So we have, I think it's just like the Certiport certifications. It's sort of, we have done it before where we've embedded the Certiport, that was an end game for the program. And we had, out of 20 students, we had 5 pass the Certiport certifications. So, but yeah, it's a hard certification, but at the end of the day, the county wanted 100%. So, but they have to understand that, that you're not, in 30 hours, you're probably not gonna get to 100%, right? So somebody's gonna come in with skill sets already, who are scoring pretty high on those work keys, to then be eligible. But what we can do within that 30 hours, and they go to the job place, is that they see the value of going after that certification. If the employer values it, then they're gonna come back and they're gonna go after the certification. And we offer that pathway. And we do, like you guys offer the pathway with HIT. So we've had, like when we worked with, I reached out to New Mexico DOH because when we first did this, I had a couple women who had done medical billing in the past, and they were applying new set IT skills, and they already had medical billing, so I was able to put them in touch, and they went and worked for their 100 hours at New Mexico DOH, which was invaluable to, and DOH said, I got the fact is they come in with that 100 hours, you're paying for them to get the certifications just to work with our software. And so now they're much more eligible for us to employ. So it's the networks. And again, it's very unofficial. Like all of you coming here. I mean, it's like I'm learning more about everybody, and it's sort of now I have a new network, right, to put people. And then you guys have networks, and so we're helping. Like with Sam, it's you can put her in touch with other people who need those skill sets. So.
Oh, the other word I was going to throw out was I don't like the word marketing. And it's my own made-up term called momentum marketing, or maybe it's better just to call it momentum building. So it's not marketing, but how do you build traffic or engagement and so the flip of it is not just like, am I in the newspaper on Sunday? It's how many people contacted me after that art, like how do I change the lens and create, and what are the venues now? Because it's so different today than when I was younger. Of actually building momentum, and what's that framework?
So ROI, right? Return on investment. So we definitely embed that. That's part of the personal awareness as well. Is what is each thing that you're doing is your return on investment. So whether it's like dressing up better, or having better customer service skills, but also the same thing with social media. How do you know that people are looking at what your content is, right? And looking at analytics and how to access them. And so Kendra Arnold is the person we've worked with from KLA Concepts in the past. Now she's moved, so we'll be hitting you guys up. So, yeah. So yeah, no, that's a huge one. Yeah. So we just call it return on investment.
And here's the 2 other little things. Nowadays, it's crazy when people send you an email and they don't put a return information at the bottom with their name.
That's my pet.
I get it all the time, and yes, these are people I correspond with regularly, but sometimes I'm on my phone in a canyon, or like there is no way I could figure out how to get back to them unless it's at the bottom. Like if you teach them anything, tell them, put their contact info always at the bottom. Like that is just pet peeve.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds so silly, like as a curriculum thing to tell you that, but like that makes all the difference. And number 2, old-fashioned, write a thank you note. And so in relationship building, what does that look like to literally connect with people? And I don't have the time and energy to do it, but at midnight I always think like, oh, I need to write Chris a thank you note or so-and-so for buying us lunch or whatever, and I don't because I don't have time.
Yeah.
But the reality of getting something in the mail, literally that is not a bill. That was handwritten by someone. It's just so novel that you go, oh my God, who is this person? Like, wow. Anyway. Those are 2.
My mother would have loved you.
Yeah.
That was like one of my torture things when I was little.
I know.
It's one of my points of guilt as a mother. Like, God, I'm not teaching them how to write their thank you notes.
Right?
I'm doing okay as a mom, but that's a failure.
So, no, but all good points, yeah.
While we're on writing,
Yeah.
when you asked some months ago for us to submit the skills that we might, I totally forgot writing. I think we didn't even say writing, which is gigantic. And it seems to me, we need writers. That doesn't mean you have to be a poet. but just, you know, you can write it clear, you can edit,
Concise sentence, yeah.
you know, be competent.
I deal with that every day in the
Yeah.
classroom, yeah, it's
Yeah.
huge, it's huge.
And we have
Yeah.
this gigantic catalog of this filmmaker's works, 232 of his video diaries that we're making this catalog of, and they need to be edited. And so that's one of the things where,
We've been working on that for a while.
And that relates to
Yeah.
the Office 365 skills, because if they learn how to use spelling and grammar check and understand
Mhm.
the results that are given to them,
Yeah,
that's something we can all
yeah,
help with.
Office, yeah. Yeah, and we basically give a real brief overview, and again, it's intensive, they know they're going into that. And so, and then if they want to get more, we basically, there's what we call our OFTC classes here at the college, but we also have some classes that we can build with continuing ed specifically towards certification, so. And that's where Carla comes in. She's like, what? So.
All right, good.
She's the yeah, actually I'm glad.
All right, good, because.
We have to have a little mini after meeting.
Okay. And then we're gonna have a maxi meeting after that.
A maxi meeting.
Agenda.
Yes, lots of stuff. So anything else anybody wants to share? Anything you guys can? So-
Good work, good work.
Yes,
Thanks.
yes, we cheer you.
No, it's been, I mean, for me, these are skill sets that are so important to the film industry that are very overlooked, because most of the time we're training like grips, electrics, you know, camera, and when students come in, they think, oh, why do I have to write a paper? You know, and so, and Eric's been in some of my classes where paper writing is required. And, you know, a formal essay, what does that look like? What is bias? You know, all of those types of things. And this program really does that. And it says, you know, these skill sets are important for all of these pathways, wherever you end up going. And I think, you know, it's a great mix. We have people who have these contract type jobs, but then we have an employer like MVD who's looking for full-time type positions. So I think, you know, and we have other employers who aren't here today that are also interested. So I think we'll have a good mix. So my next step would be, if you think of anything after you leave, please feel free to, Heather, yes?
Hi.
Hi, come on in. So Heather,
Sorry,
no,
got
it's okay.
Stuck at another fundraising
So
meeting.
introduce yourself. So just we're wrapping up, but
I know.
yeah, no, it's okay.
I'm Hannah. I work with Currents New Media. We make the media festival every June here in town. Yeah, I'm our education and outreach coordinator. And I'm sorry I just got stuck at Santa Fe Community Foundation for too long this morning. I am late, but
Well, you need grants, right?
I'm
So
the
that's-
latest.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we were just talking about all the different types of pathways, and so and I can follow up with you, you know,
Great.
right after.
That'd be
Yeah.
lovely, yeah.
But yeah, so, and again, Currents is a great one, and they've been here for how many years now?
Well, since 2002, we've been doing
Yeah.
festivals. Since 2010, we've been in the El Museo space in sort of this international scale with artists from all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're sitting across the table with Jean Youngblood and Jane over here.
Hi.
say hello to Frank and Mariana.
I will.
Yeah.
I will.
And then we have Eric, who's working with them, and then Carla works with us here at the community college, and Chris as well, and Jennifer's with TechWorks,
Great.
and then Glenda's with our labor board, and Kristen's with a bunch of different programs with labor. And I'm sorry, first name again.
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Caitlin is with Simply Sound and Phase.
Great.
Or
Yeah,
Simply
great.
Social.
Simply
But we do
Social.
the Arts Commission social media.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, do a great job.
Thank you.
Yes, very beautiful. So, so yeah, so the next step for me will be kind of summarizing all this, wrapping it up. I'll send it out to everybody. And then our next step will be curriculum development, which we'll get started with early in January. And I'll probably send out sort of a template for you guys to make comments, a live document, Google document.
We can do it!
Yeah.
We can do it!
And we can all kind of post and share and kind of start to build from there. And then we'll basically work with the board and DWS and Sarah to kind of do the information sessions. Usually we do them through Department of Workforce Solutions, and then start that process. So yeah, exciting.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Perhaps you're talking about these biographies or whatever, these video. Why don't we have some of these PROTEC success stories tell their story?
On video.
Yeah.
Let's have them tell their stories.
Okay, yeah, and I have one that just came in, a young man, and it was through kind of like an earlier version of this program, but who is now working for Chevron in DC as a lobbyist, and he's using all of his media skills, which he's, not that, everybody's like, oh, it's Chevron. But I'm like, he has a job and he's working in DC, so. Yeah, so we got that story coming up. Great, so thank you guys all for coming, and I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, to graduate, they have to do a video.
There you
And the
go.
graduates have to do a
Jennifer, you're
video.
always putting parameters.
I know. And more work, right?
Yeah.
I'm always like, hey, let's do this. Oh, wait, that's like
Somebody has to
50
do
million
this.
hours
Feel
of
free to
extra
take
work.
croissants, donuts with you.
We want you to eat them.
I
What?
know.